Never in the history of the world have the merchants of obscenity had available to them the modern facilities for disseminating this filth. The onslaught of the communist masters of deceit.
Bingo. Common. Slugs. Bingo. Common. Slugs. Bingo. Common. Slugs. Bingo. Common. Slugs.
All right.
What's your favorite Billy Joel song?
Can you name the most famous Billy Joel song?
Piano Man is the most famous.
Okay, and the one that he's Italian restaurant.
Yeah, Italian Restaurant is a very famous one.
I know most Billy Joel songs from...
Only the Good Die Young. It's a very Catholic song.
I know him mostly from advertisement for the musical. There's Moving Out.
Moving Out. Moving Out. That's the one where he talks about Hackensack, because you get a house out in Hackensack, and I know where Hackensack is, and it is a dump. It is a dump.
Billy Joel is just homophobic Elton John.
Okay.
I thought he was just Long Island Elton John.
That's what I said.
Hey, welcome to Pinko Commie Sluts.
People from Long Island are homophobic.
It's true. We're in Long Island right now.
Yeah, but that's not how it works.
I'm being pedantic.
Yeah, but whatever. Doesn't matter.
It does matter. Where does Long Island start?
Yeah, where does it start, Marlo?
It has a geographic and then political definition.
It certainly does have a political definition.
Right. I mean political as in the political entity that is defined as Long Island, not like how one calls a map a political map if it shows like where a country's borders are versus a geographic map that shows geography, whatever.
Which is why we're on an island right now. And
yes,
it's
that
long.
is geographically called Long Island.
Right.
It is not the political entity that is Long Island.
And who's to say I wasn't saying geographic?
It also isn't the connotative common parlance definition of Long Island either.
I know.
Long Island.
I know. Made a prick. Then
Long Island. My first college roommate was from Long Island. She was from Comac.
Comac. I know where Comac is.
The name of the thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure was...
shout out to her. She told me all about that. She did a lot of X and GHB recreationally in high school.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
And I based a sketch I wrote off of that where, because GHB is one of the date rape drugs.
Yeah.
So I wrote a sketch where someone is attempting to drug a girl, but she's
already
got a tolerance for GHB, so she just has a great time.
Yeah. I knew a lot of people that just did GHB recreationally.
I've met a Jeeber, as they call themselves.
Otherwise known as people from Long Island.
Also known as homophobes.
Oh, shit.
There's a hurricane going on.
Oh, shit.
If we go dark.
Out for a minute.
Oh, shit.
If we go dark, assume we're all dead.
Oh, boy. This is like asking to get electrocuted.
We're in the middle of Ida. The remnants of Ida.
Is this Ida?
Yeah.
I wasn't, yeah. Oh, right, I don't watch the news or pay attention to it at all.
That's his character.
Yep. I have no idea what's happening. I assume the gods are angry with the last sacrifice.
And they are.
Bunny, are you having your period?
No.
In a way that is offensive to the gods.
It is
are those
a
two
waning
separate
moon.
questions?
We are coming upon the new moon. So
that's significant.
I don't know anything about meteorology, but that sounds right.
Yeah. Anyway, what were we going to talk about, guys? Besides yet again how Marlo doesn't listen to the news. Next time we should just make something up.
Yeah.
And he'd believe us.
That'll be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, do that.
We bombed another country.
Sure.
Yeah, we bombed. Guys,
China.
Did
We're
you hear
going to war
about?
with China?
Here's a little
I
off.
would obviously pick up on that, dude.
Would you though?
No.
You missed the
No, you got to do
terrorist
something
attack.
like. Did you guys hear
Yeah,
this
but-
story about the people who pretended to be a school that didn't actually exist and got to play several games on ESPN as a football team they made up?
Oh, that's cool shit.
Bishop Sycamore, I believe it was the name.
That's a good
and
name.
several of the team members were well over the age. They were former junior college players. Some of them were felons.
That's cool shit.
So, yeah, pretty awesome story all around.
Deuce Rock. Is that a made-up story?
No,
or-
that's true.
Okay.
That's true.
Goddamn.
You kind of prefaced it with
No,
you
you
should
have-
make up a story like this.
But I'm saying
could-
it
I could
has
see
to be
this as, like,
it has to have a verisimilitude, where you're like, oh, Bishop Sycamore, that sounds real. So we can't just say we
Honestly-
bombed China. It's got to be like
Honestly,
we
you
bombed.
Okay, here's my thing. You could easily, if you said a thing like someone suicide bombed like an airport in Afghanistan and killed a couple Americans, I would obviously believe that. So really, it should be a challenge on what could you get me to believe? Because
All right, Marlo, you don't get to set the perimeters
Yeah,
of what the
no,
fuck
okay.
pranks
You're
we're
not-
gonna play on you.
You're not
Okay,
the sovereign of
Yeah,
ignorance.
you don't
over
get to
here.
decide how you're tricked, sir.
Oh, no,
Believe me,
I'm just
this is
saying,
going
if you-
underground for
if you
several
wanna
weeks
simply-
before we spring it on you, so you forget.
Sir.
If you want to
Sir.
simply do like, oh, a suicide bombing happened in Tel Aviv, and me going, yeah, okay, sure. That didn't actually happen, you asshole. Yeah, fine, do that. I'm just saying, if you want to challenge yourselves, then like,
Again,
take some fucking pride in your work.
you have no idea what would delight us to
Yeah.
fool you into.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying, like,
Okay, what about there were some movements in the South China Sea and Secretary of State Blinken was meeting with the Chinese ambassador over potential sanctions that could escalate into armed conflict.
that makes no sense, and I would never believe that for several reasons. Why would he be discussing with the Chinese about going, oh, hey, let's have a meeting. I think we should go to war together.
So
Yeah.
you're saying the parameters also have to be like a cogent news story.
Well, I have to believe it. If your goal is to trick me and I'm not tricked, then you didn't accomplish your goal. Sorry if that's too pedantic for you, but I think it should be something I believe.
Why would we celebrate
that's what
success if you didn't buy it?
Well, yeah, that's
No.
what Steve was saying.
Look,
Well, I
look,
was
this
answering
is-
Steve's thing.
This is for us to worry about, okay?
Okay.
You're
I'm
trying to
saying,
engineer.
If you manage to trick
look.
me that the U.S. is going to war with China, then I
Okay.
would say
I'm so sorry we
congratulations
activated
to you.
your autism this week, Marlo. You can't engineer how we're going to prank you.
No, I'm laying out a challenge.
Wait, was
It's
your
called laying out
autism? We figured this out last week
Yeah.
that both Bunny and Marlo are very autistic, and I'm bipolar. So
Well, okay, other people figured that out, Stephen, years ago.
I realize that, but we collectively figured that out last week when we discussed it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right, I'm just saying though, like, it's called laying down a challenge. It's
I understand the challenge.
Okay.
I contrived.
yeah, she contrived it, and
And-
you're trying to set.
You're trying to set the conditions in which
Okay,
it should occur.
I'm laying out what counter arguments I'm going to make if you guys do lame shit. So just keep those in mind.
What?
Okay.
What?
All right.
You're already like.
All right. So
You're
defensive.
you're preemptively throwing out suicide bombers before we even send in the duds.
Yes, exactly.
Oh God. Oh, God.
most
You
you
know
can
what?
say.
I'm going to pick out so many news stories that sound like they're fucking not true, and I'm just going to pepper them in the next few weeks. You're going to think you're getting got
Yeah,
now,
sure, that's
and then
a
when
good
you
strategy.
least expect it, bam.
Condition me.
Yeah, that's right.
This will be Pavlovian as
I
fuck.
guess. All right.
And I'll say,
I
know what that sound means. I should salivate now.
Wait, it's gonna come out in 2 minutes.
I was doing a Pavlov thing.
Well, I was
yeah.
doing a cuckoo clock thing.
Yeah.
It's
Trying
fine.
to
I do want to point out that there has been a bunch of war drum beating about China. Like, they really have their dicks hard for a war with China. So I'm just saying.
No, I'm just getting ready for you to lay out a fake story now. In fact, I'm going to doubt everything you say from here on out.
I'm not
This
saying
is going to be a thing where we're never going to do it to you,
I'm
and you're
gonna
just going to be
discard-
filled with doubt at everything we say.
Look,
We're going to be
I am
like,
going
there's another
universal
tornado warning. You're going to be
skepticism.
like, bullshit. You're going to get swept away. This is as if you're reverse boy cried wolf situation we're creating here.
Okay, number one, tornadoes cannot take me down. That's wind, and
It's not a tornado. It's a hurricane that turned into
there
a tropical
was
storm.
there was a
Tornado.
tornado watch
phone
in
said there were
Brooklyn
tornadoes.
today.
That wasn't a tornado watch, though.
No, it was,
Earlier
it
there
said
was,
the
It was
word
a flood watch.
Yeah.
said tornado.
There was on my drive home. There was tornado.
Absolutely
watch.
said tornado.
Tornadoes
Now
can happen
who
real
doesn't
fast.
Watch the news from
Them's
your
a twister.
phone, Steven.
And
There's the Pavlov.
Oh my God, my dad is bringing me food now.
10 o'clock at night. Is your dad Greek?
Yeah.
Time to eat. 10 o'clock. You know, here's some positive news. Because they did some shit all those years ago after Katrina, it didn't flood so bad as it could have.
Thanks,
Fantastic.
Michael Bloomberg.
So,
Thanks.
and not here in fucking New Orleans
Thanks.
is what I'm
Okay.
talking
Thanks.
about.
Katrina.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kanye and Michael Moore or Michael Meyer.
That's right. Oh, I guess you and I listened to Kanye.
Donda.
We listened to Donda. You didn't, Marlo.
All right, give me your thoughts, Bunny.
I mean,
I can't believe that he didn't hear it through the walls.
I
he
was out doing
came.
something.
He was out running errands, and he might have heard a little snippet I had playing. But then I did go on a walk, and I listened to my headphones. I will say, despite everything, Kanye remains listenable. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've made this point before. Despite Kanye's, whatever you want to call it, progression into the person he currently is,
Boorish tendencies.
it doesn't make him worse at making beats and etc. And so even if years ago when he put out that like poopity scoop,
Which one?
it was like a beat. It was just nonsense words, but it was funny because it stuck in your head, and like you found yourself like I listened to it one time and it was in my head. I just think it's funny that he still has this ability, talent, or whatever. There was only one song that I liked as like just casual pop song, kind of whatever. I liked Remote Control. But, you know.
From this album.
From this album, yes.
The one song that I remember is Jail.
He did a lot of part one and part two.
And there was-
so
I think that was just the-
reprises like a musical.
The repetitions, the extended rap improv, mostly the use of featured artists. Hey, we're Pinko Kami Sluts discussing black people again.
Yeah, yes, though it's Kanye West.
It's
So,
Kanye West. It was it wasn't memorable.
to me, it's like a weird, almost kind of a mirror image of how I feel about David Lynch, where I feel like David Lynch is so great at creating these aesthetics and
You heard it here. David Lynch is Kanye West.
but okay, hear me out. But
The
David
whitest
Lynch-
analogy ever.
David Lynch is
Well,
also
mine is he's Bob Dylan, so that's
All right, let Bunny give her opinion about the album.
So in that, David Lynch is very talented at these aesthetics. He creates these visuals, these vibes, right? But he, especially as he's progressed in his personal life, he's become very detached from feeling like any adherence to a standard narrative structure is important. You know, he's a big transcendental meditation person, which is what I blame it on. But basically, there's a similar quality about Kanye where he creates these great sonic things, but he's not tethered to telling a story that he cares if we understand. It's like he doesn't slow down to funnel something through and think, how would people receive this? You know, this
is where I say it's like Bob Dylan.
Yes, we know how you consider him like Bob Dylan.
I've never brought that up on the show before.
But I've heard this analogy every time I say Kanye is shitty, and you say, oh, he's just the Bob Dylan of our generation, and I roll my eyes, and I think, what a stupid thing to say.
Yeah, he's way better than Bob Dylan.
Well, yes, that's clear, but it's the same idea of his progression of continually not giving a shit ad infinitum. Yeah.
I thought there was a couple songs, a couple beats that were listenable that got my head bopping, but the rest of it was really just mediocre. And a lot of stuff that either reflected what I've already heard from similar rap artists that I felt like he stole, or just kind of like lopping on trends that he thought would sell well, which he could do better.
I always go back to the time Kanye very proudly declared that he didn't read books, right? Aside from the very easy angle to be like, oh, you're dumb, you don't read books, like, whatever. I'm like, look, I'm open to there being a relevant point of view there. Okay, yeah, actually, a book is not a very accessible way to get information to massive amounts of people. Okay, fair enough. Like, okay, is that the direction he's going in when he's saying this? No, it seems like his resistance is to the kind of introspection that would come with reading.
None of his work seems introspective.
Yeah, like it's beyond a lack of self-awareness. It's like he could be a better version of the kind of artist I think he wants to be if he read some books. Like if he was like, I wonder if certain things in this vein have been done before. Often he describes inspiration as either something he's pulled from his childhood, which is like a frequent thing, or it's something he describes like he just stumbled upon it. He happened upon it. He saw this fashion show, etc.
Don't like any of this.
I mean, I'm not averse to someone prioritizing
their Freudian id.
I wouldn't agree with that. I don't think it's necessary to devalue things that have aesthetic appeal, things that etc. Like
very surface level and requires no like thought put into it.
It's very judgmental, but I'm trying to broaden that away from. I think there's room for people who are different kinds of smart, I guess, about certain things. Like, so there's definitely a general bias towards intellectual things being a certain value that's over anything that is primarily, it's pretty simplistic. It's like things that are more visual, more commercial, more et cetera, are less artistically valuable. If you were to be the kind of person who is making a hierarchy of high art, low art, etc., in that base kind of way.
I don't disagree with that. I just think there's something to be said specifically about books as a medium, as a way to deliver information, and what Kanye is saying, which is a very typical attitude from a lot of people and a lot of artists of various stripes of trying to package yourself as original to an absurd degree of that meaning of original, where any admission to some influence or some, like saying like I get my ideas from here is somehow a weakening of yourself.
Yeah, and also I meant it as judgmental because we are here judging him. I think, if anything, it's fair to be judging him on a review of his record that we both listened to.
Oh, I'm simply saying, devoid of Kanye, to me, it's fine if someone doesn't read books, if perhaps their reasoning makes sense to me, as I explained before, which I think there is room for that. I like books. I enjoy books. I can get really into a book. I know other people who I consider intelligent who don't feel the same way.
And I like really surface level things that don't require reading as well, but also that would be fine if Kanye did that and the music was, I don't know, inspiring. And also, I want to point out, you were like, I heard that there's only 2 or 3 songs about God. And
I really don't remember when I said that.
You said it in
think
chat.
somebody said it to me, and I just repeated
You said
it.
in
So
chat,
I literally.
And I was like, oh, that's a good sign. I hope it's I hope it's not too gospely. And then you look down at the track listing, and it's just like, I celebrate God.
It's very God heavy, and that's the other sad thing to me about his particular version of I don't read books, because the only fucking book he has read is probably not even the Bible.
Yeah,
but
I don't know if he
I feel like a televangelist self-help book about the Bible is something that he read one time, and it's he's got some aphorisms floating around in there, but. Yeah, I feel like someone who isn't curious in the particular way that Kanye seems not curious. They go back to religious themes a lot of times, which personally is super boring to me.
Yeah, it's very low-hanging fruit.
And it's very midlife. I've gone through an entire career and I need a new direction. And I need to be saved, which is also very Bob Dylan.
Yeah, I know. It's almost like I had that in mind when I made that comparison.
Yeah, but Bob Dylan also definitely reads books.
Yeah, okay, fine. Bob Dylan has read Ginsberg once. Yeah, or whatever. I don't know, Cuckoo's Nest, whatever the fuck those guys are.
He wrote a book.
Yeah, probably.
Multiple books.
Yeah, but they all suck and are boring. Steve, what Bob Dylan
which you
books
haven't read.
What Bob Dylan books have you read?
Chronicles. It's his autobiography.
Oh, yeah, I had
it's
that
good.
on my shelf. I never
It's
read
pretty
it.
good.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought it sucked.
I liked it.
Uh-huh. Maybe I'll read it.
It really sucked. Maybe I'll read it.
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't know. It's good. You say it's good?
Yeah, it's fine. It's like looking back, I met Bono once and he's this character.
Actually, let's roll this back. He wrote books. Which books have you read? His autobiography.
Well,
every
he also,
celebrity. Paris Hilton wrote an autobiography.
Okay.
Okay.
We're doing a lot of real reflexive, dismissive stuff.
He also wrote something about a tarantula, which was a
Barack Obama wrote an autobiography.
He also wrote a surreal, on the road tarantula's nest or whatever in the 60s. I have a copy of it, but I have not read it.
Let me know if it's good, dude. I want to know.
But
does he say where are the spiders, or is that not him?
Is that from Aqua Teen Hunger Force?
Where are the spiders? No, it's David Bowie.
Oh yeah, that's right. That is David Bowie.
God damn.
Oh wow.
So, what would you give Donda.
Yeah, I mean,
Remember the
it's
intro
definitely.
when he goes,
Oh,
Donda,
God.
Donda, Donda,
It's like that's what's irritating.
That's
Wow.
super 2000s, and I love
Yeah.
that.
Obviously, Kanye would be, to me, super into a lot of dumb performance art shit. He like should be doing more of if that's where he wants to go.
There was also a lot of performative. Not
yeah.
The
performative.
dude gave himself several mental illnesses for your entertainment. And so,
Like he did a lot
God
of
gave him those mental illnesses
political.
Sure.
by killing his mother. Jesus Christ! God damn it! I don't know.
That's funny as shit. That's actually the funniest. Okay, hold up. God gave him those mental illnesses by killing his mother is the title of this episode. Oh, and also do it like the splash card at the beginning of The Wire and have Dash Bunny Themless underneath.
Yeah, make sure that's attached to me forever.
She said that.
Yeah.
She, Bunny, said that.
I declared
It's
God.
Incredibly funny.
God thought it would
I
be
love that so much.
God thought it'd be super funny. God is really cruel, so he probably did think it was funny to take Kanye's mom when she went to get plastic surgery. That was probably he's fucked up. Cosmic humor. It's
Yes.
You got to be one of them, I think.
There was a lot more politics in the album.
I guess, but it all seems funneled through this. There's just this myopia, I guess, that curtails everything. Like he hermits himself. This recent iteration in that place out in Wyoming.
Yep. Where he's not having gay trysts with people.
Yeah.
Is that a lyric?
No, actually, this was like a very successful troll was able to get this rumor off the ground immediately. Controversial internet star Jeffree Star also lives in Wyoming. And so they were like, that's why Kim and Kanye broke up, because he's fucking Jeffree Star.
But I've heard that it's an open secret in multiple industries that Kanye's
I
gay.
remember that.
I
don't
feel
believe
like
that.
I'm weary of that because there's a lot of black celebrities that exact thing is said about quite often. It's
And
very frequent if they show kind of like literally any vulnerability in any way. They are like, they're a secret gay, right?
Yeah, and like with the celebrities where that rumor happens and is true about, it's
But Kanye shows no weakness.
much more Yeah, well, that's because he's a great artist, the voice of his generation, and a modern day iteration of Bob Dylan. But yeah, the times
I want Kanye to get a guru is how I feel.
God,
He's
I don't
ready
want that at all.
for a guru. He's ready to
George Harrison's guru.
that's what I'm saying. He's ready for that iteration. I want him to
I want him to watch.
I want him to make like a pet sounds of Kanye.
I want him to watch the movie with Mike Myers as the guru, the love guru, and have him think that Mike Myers is actually a guru.
I want Kanye to go to the same doctors that recently diagnosed Chris Rock with autism, and just give him a go. Just run him through. I don't know. I just think maybe he needs some tools.
I think it's fairly clear the dude actually has some manic tendencies.
For sure.
I don't think I'm being an armchair shrink by saying mania might be an element.
You
to
make a
this
2
jigsaw.
hour
Mania's very
2 hour long album with nobody checking you.
Mania's
and
it's very
that's
broad though.
Inspirational.
So,
Well, that is a lot of artists.
and I think it's very
through history. Like,
Oh, I know.
Well, it's-
Yeah.
As somebody we've established is a bipolar artist.
no. It's not saying he's a good artist because of it or a bad artist because of it, but he's someone who has the level of saying, I'm going to do the things that it takes to be an artist or kill myself or something.
I think it's particularly difficult for Kanye because so much of his initial success, I think, feels like it was informed by that, like, super braggadocio, like, I'm the greatest, fucking, you know, whatever shit. Like, so then when later, probably someone's like, have you heard of delusions of grandeur? He's very resistant to parse it out. You know what I mean? Because as with a lot of people who experience mania, there are aspects of it that, hey, it worked for me these times.
It fucking rules.
Absolutely.
Are you kidding me?
You know?
No, it fucking rules.
It's awesome.
How dare you tell me that my decision to write 20 pages of gibberish about what I thought of a debate one night when I stayed up till 6 o'clock the next morning writing about it is not just the recipe of success. And I'm going to start writing a book about it, and then I'm going to write another book about it following that book. And that is going to be my trilogy, which will be my legacy. I don't know how you can say I'm wrong with that.
No, I mean, it's the same way I utilize my hyper focus, you know.
You can't speak to my bipolar disorder.
No, I can't, but I can speak to experiencing having lots of family members on the bipolar spectrum. And it is not always able to be utilized in the same way by everyone. My aunt, for instance, hers were like, I'm running away almost every time.
There's this pretty good YouTube series of old clinical videos, like filming people with different things. And it's got this like really fucking haunting one of a housewife with like serious depression in the 1950s. But it has this hilarious one of this 80s dude with mania.
Well, there's a wonderful book that I read that is bipolar A, because it's not a spectrum necessarily. It's like there's an A and a B.
Well, there's
status.
more than that.
Yeah, there's A and B are the known most popular things to say about it, and then you have other.
Well, and then you have like more
C.
rapid cycling, like it's
but
there's not actually like a thing out there that with diagnostic language, I'm always very wary of acting like some entity. You figured out what the entity meant when you put the things in the brain, you know?
Between things to create language is subjective and not referential to actual objects in the real world, Bunny. Do you not remember the thing we watched?
Yeah.
Instead of digressing into a philosophical point, I was trying to make an actual point about understanding it.
Well, yes.
there's a
what
wonderful-
we call a diagnosis is like a set of things we kind of...
There is a wonderful book called Electro Boy, which is about a guy who's diagnosed as bipolar A. He was diagnosed for this because he flew around the world selling art for tens of thousands of dollars for like a week every month, and then he would make enough money in that week to like pay for everything else, and then he would spend the other 3 weeks of those months just with a horrible masturbation. Like, he would just get into the depressive and just jack off 24 hours a day, and then go back to like traveling the world.
This
and
is a
selling art.
Hemingway novel about the coolest guy ever.
Yeah, it's called Electro Boy. It was very eye-opening, and then they put him through the
electroshock theory.
Electroshock therapy, and he documented through this book about his struggles with it, and I was like, damn, maybe I don't have bipolar A. That doesn't sound like my symptoms.
Yeah, my aunt, I believe, had bipolar A, where like mildly she would start to feel like everything's going great.
Yeah,
I should go off this medicine. And then almost immediately,
that was just paranoid schizophrenia.
Yeah,
so
she would almost immediately fall into a hypomania, and she had an episode once when she was visiting us from Canada in Baltimore where she disappeared in Baltimore City, where she's been one other time before, and ended up at a church with some nuns. Like,
as a nun?
walked maybe 5 or 6 miles away from my childhood home.
Well, this is the Quebecois side.
Yes.
So,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
so she
The Greek
speaks
side
non.
wouldn't ever admit.
Any
My
mental
dad a little
illness.
bit, just because he's trying to get Adderall, but nowadays.
The
But
eye
no, this is
Greek.
definitely this is my Canadian side. And then even my aunt's bipolar were so severe that basically, despite any resistance to diagnosis or classification, it was like complete necessity. But I just remember how it was understood when I was very young, and then how things have shifted since then. Because there was an idea when I was really young that it was very, it's a chemical imbalance. So you can just like test the chemicals and see like what's out of balance, and that's
Well, I feel like-
not quite it.
I feel like today we still believe chemical imbalance while simultaneously acknowledging it's not verifiable.
Well, not only that it's not verifiable, but it's not really treatable in any
Right, like,
it's not
it's-
treatable in any exact science that
Yeah, it's the same level of mystification that it's a religion that you can't actually
Yeah.
approach it scientifically. It's just there's no God, so it's a chemical imbalance.
and my experience of being unofficially diagnosed, because I was never officially diagnosed because they are too wary of diagnosing. So
Oh, they were pretty willy-nilly for a while there. There's a lot of people who were
Right, and you
misdiagnosed.
say that you've been on like a
Oh, they'll put you on that
on
without
a
any fucking
medication
diagnosis.
regimen.
I was
For-
never diagnosed
They'll
with
put
it,
you on.
though.
Like a
You say you
decade?
have
Never.
anxiety, and they'll
Yeah, but
just start
like,
trying
how
shit
long
out.
were you on meds?
You got money, you got
12
insurance.
years.
Yeah,
I was
so-
on the medication for bipolar for 12 years. The only diagnosis I ever received was general anxiety. And they're like, well, you know,
I am also diagnosed GAD.
yeah, we don't want you to feel like you want to kill yourself anymore. So we're going to test you out on cocktails until you find something that's right.
Yeah.
And then we're going to stick you with that medication for over a decade.
Yeah, it's the approaches to suicidal ideation and like its various manifestations are still pretty primitive, despite us having a booming,
Economy of suicidal ideation.
of pharmaceuticals, and nothing against pharmaceuticals or therapists or etc. But I'm just speaking from the perspective of if you've dealt with a loved one who has committed suicide, it becomes obvious when you're close to it, like there's no answer to it. Like it doesn't make sense. Like there's an aspect of it that, as much as we'd like it to, can't be reduced to this or that. And they are forced to try several different cocktails. I have several friends who had a very bad experience on an initial thing, and then they switched to something else, and it's been amazing for
Yep,
them.
that
It's
was
just
my
very
experience.
unfortunate that we don't have a different way to approach that, and we don't have broad access.
And the general approach, or at least the one that when I was diagnosed in 2006, 2007, was let's overdiagnose, because overdiagnosis is preferable to them ending up dead because they say they want to die. So overdiagnosis is a mitigator of that problem.
Which sounds like somebody who does not
Listen.
like, because it's in all the literature, one of the first things that it can trigger going on any kind of these pharmaceuticals is like increased suicidal ideation. And
Well, certainly that was the case when I went off the medication.
Yeah.
Because I went off the medication after 12 years, after possibly like 2 or 3 years of begging my psychiatrist to wean me off the medication. And every time I begged him to wean me off or to change it, he said, wrong season. There's too many depressed people in the winter. And then the winter would pass, and then it would be spring, and I'd be like, oh, things are, not the greatest for me, but I'd still like to go off the medication. Well, it's not the greatest for you, so it's not a good time for you to go off the medication.
Which is funny, because a lot of people try to seek some kind of pharmaceutical help and are like denied because they're like, oh, you're just going through a rough time right now. Like, oh, it's a conditional thing. It's very funny because it really is just depends on who your doctor happens to be.
It's almost like your entire outlook is a relationship between internal and external factors, and that will always be true regardless.
Okay, but what does that have? Like,
Yeah, what does that add to the discussion?
Well, no, I mean, I'm just saying that the idea that, oh, it's not a good time to go off of medication, or you shouldn't go on medication because you're having a bad time right now. Well, yeah, that's always going to be true.
It was all.
Like
it wasn't. It had no relationship to me going off the medication. Was my point.
Right, and I'm just saying
it
that
was an
the
excuse
doctor is using it as an excuse and ignoring that fact
because they're incentivized to keep you to keep you on the medication, and also.
So the best technique is to be like, I'd like to switch to something else. That's not a joke. Like, if you want to get off one medication.
Tried, and the excuse that was always given was, if we switch you, then your symptoms might return. And then I would ask, well, my symptoms for what? Because you never gave me a diagnosis. And they said, well, the only way we would be able to find a diagnosis is if we took you off of it. Then I was like, well, can you take me off of it? And they'd be like, well, it's not a good time now. And that happened for like 3 to 4 years until I just cut off all my medication cold turkey, and then experienced a bunch of brain zaps and a lot more suicidal ideation and a lot more like body dysmorphia. It was like a wacky 2 weeks that Marlo like watched me like roll around on a couch for.
No, you're cool as shit, dude.
Yeah.
I love you, man.
But yes, bipolar is a creative well. It's a way for some people to describe their or to diagnose creativity, or that they use it for creativity, which Kanye is using it. I have definitely used my mania for many a creative endeavor, and it has been very fruitful for that. But it comes with the problem of the fact that there's a downside, which means a loss of serotonin, and some days you just don't want to get out of bed or whatever, but then some days you just want to write an album in 24 hours, and you take the good with the bad. And so I understand Kanye in that respect and his desire to make a 2-hour album. I also want to make a 2-hour album once every 5 years. And so I understand that. I just wish that like his mania would produce something that was more interesting over that 2 hours.
Well, yeah. Did you, were you aware of the performance that he did at all? Like, I just know, he did a thing at the end where Kim came out in couture wedding gown from Balenciaga last season, our most recent season, and like implied like a remarriage or like whatever.
I heard that it was something like a performance of marriage.
Yeah, but that's the only aspect I really saw. I don't know if there was anything. I know he sets himself on fire before
that. I heard that too. This all sounds.
It all sounds cool as shit. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I also don't watch things because, as we've established, I don't enjoy watching things as much as I enjoy listening to things. That's something we established in the ContraPoints video, which I think you had something to say about.
Oh, yeah. I, upon listening to that, I just wanted to clarify that...
Bunny clarification time.
Yeah. So I sort of like spontaneously said I didn't care about the thesis, and was derided by both of you for this. And I just wanted to clarify that what I mean is, I think what ContraPoints was aiming at in that video was not a philosophical or scientific investigation of the concept of envy, but a poetic one. So she is contemplating in a truth-seeking way, but is not necessarily concerned with running that through a systemic framework with an emphasis on objectivity.
Sounds like a long excuse for being a loser.
Is this some Greek shit where you say poetic, but you actually mean poesis?
Yeah, well, poesis, I was going to bring up...
I know. I knew where this was going.
Because I wrote it down earlier.
Explain what the difference between poesis and the other words, systems of knowledge.
Well, I mean, like, to put it roughly, I'm not trying to be deeply... Don't use me on your study sheet. But essentially...
There are lots of Greek students out there that are taking notes right now.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure they're all tuned
like
in.
ancient Greek.
Well, it'd be classical philosophy. Anyway, Bonnie, teach us classical philosophy.
Well, it's not classical philosophy necessarily. I guess the point I was meaning is I am fine with a subjective, contemplative approach to a subject, seeking truths that is not necessarily posing a thesis that is arguing something that is supposed to be an objective fact.
Right, but that's like saying, I don't care, I prefer a religion that doesn't try and convert people. Okay, but I converted all those people to my religion that does try and do that.
And also,
so I win.
I don't...
Oh, you don't want to argue your point? That's cool. Well, then your point's wrong, and here's why my point's right. I win.
I think there's a way to talk about the inherent subjectivity that we all exist in without being someone who is pretending that the contrivance of objectivity actually exists and isn't a tool we use to solve fucking problems.
My subjectivity is the more right one because I have a thesis that I argued.
Well, okay,
But if you don't need to argue a thesis if your contemplation is intuitive.
Okay, and
it's not necessary because it's not. The function isn't to prove an objective fact to somebody else. It's to explore a concept.
Arguing a thesis would say.
Okay, what I think Bunny is more trying to get to is similar to the Jordan Peterson argument, which is that what Peterson argued and what a lot of psychology argues and a lot of their rhetoric amounts to is phenomenology, which is when you're doing sort of what you described, which is arguing a point not through some grand narrative where all sides are considered and you come to an end point where your point is argued through this thesis antithesis framework, but rather a bunch of isolated anecdotes that ends an argument by collecting those anecdotes and coming to a conclusion through those anecdotes.
Yes.
And if we can collect all those subjective point of views together, we can come to, I think I watched a video of phenomenology where if you take a video camera and you put it around and you look at this table and you collect all the images of that table, then you can have a general idea of what that table is by collecting all those images of the table. And I think what you're arguing is that ContraPoints like Jordan Peterson, who was making a semi-phenomenological argument in his last book, where he uses a bunch of his character studies and his psychology patients to make an argument in this sort of roundabout way where he takes their collections of stories and ends his analysis with a description of all their perspectives or jumps off of them or
he uses them to illustrate
the point that he wants to drive home, which is what I think you're arguing that ContraPoints is doing.
Well, and further, I think with tackling a subject as macro and amorphous as envy writ large, yes, it would be, I understand how it would be more satisfying to have a cogent thesis that you could then assess whether or not you felt she proved it or not, and etc. But I don't think that the subject like envy, that's even an appropriate way to go about it for what it seemed to me she was trying to do, which was explore dimensions of this macro concept via obviously her own experiences as an individual,
not only her
which are
own
subjective.
not only her own experiences, but pop culture references and like SpongeBob SquarePants.
But I mean, people more and less intellectual or academic use those same things to illustrate.
To speak to what Steve was saying, I agree that there are other ways to prove a thesis outside this dogmatic debate bro point counterpoint, this is what they say about this, on the other hand this is what they say about that, and therefore blah blah blah, and I'm building up and proving a thesis. But what you described is still a method of proving a thesis.
I agree.
I mean, I
think that's what Bunny is trying to say about ContraPoints. I feel like
Bunny is saying something more that she was sort of musing about a subject a little more, which
I think is a valid form of contemplative truth-seeking.
Well, as I've already admitted, I haven't watched the video, so I'd leave it up to you, Steve, to say whether or not you feel that's reasonable. But having watched other ContraPoints videos, I think there is, even if you have such a nebulous subject as envy, you do have at the very least, why am I talking about this? Why should you listen to me talking about this? Level of a thesis about what am I saying about envy? That should be the point that you're getting across, and you're going to be making several arguments throughout. I've seen clips of her in that video making arguments about it. I think there's, even if you're describing a thing, you're making arguments. Is my response.
And I think it's just a very, dare I say, in the most crude and crass way I can possibly say it, postmodern way of making an argument.
I disagree with even that.
And I'm sort of like, as someone who sort of naturally finds herself vulnerable to being labeled postmodern, the way I approach some things, and without necessarily any real knowledge of postmodernism.
Right, and that's the point of the crude and crass way of using it in the straw man argument for what people say, which is that it's subjective and phenomenology is a major aspect of postmodernist philosophy.
If I could say why I don't think it's a postmodernist way, is because I would say that if you asked me what's the best way of understanding chapter 1 of Capital, I would say read chapter 1 through 7 of Capital, and you'll get chapter 1. And I think there are plenty of examples of modernist argumentation style that is not that logic 101, Socrates is mortal, whatever the fuck, syllogist logic, that approaches it from these multi-directional standpoints to arise at this conclusion from bringing meaning back from...
I'm using it again in the straw man because phenomenology does have a tradition within, and in a lot of ways postmodernism is a rejection of phenomenology, that the only way you could arrive at truth is by examining one specific thing and trying to nail it down to its most argued over critiques. And so I do agree that it is a straw man that I'm crudely using because I think it's funny.
Yeah, I just think that modernist logic actually does very much meld into it.
Right, and phenomenology is very much a modernist thing.
Right.
We can arrive at an objective truth by examining all the different points around it.
Yeah, where I want to differentiate my personal point, whereas I'm pretty...
Death of the author, we decide what you mean.
Yeah, to go back to your Logic bros, your Logic 101 bros, sending you the fallacy infographic, right?
Right.
Very annoying, right? Very...
not as annoying as somebody saying, why don't you read Jordan Peterson to understand him?
Yeah. A point I like to make about something like formal logic is that it's a great tool. It's a great tool to solve problems. It's not appropriate to solve every problem that you might have. And that's why logic can lead into getting into fucking absolute nonsense bullshit thought experiments that have no real practical application or etc. Just as they can solve a rational problem. It's the lack of seeing it as a tool and seeing it as an inherent structure of a smart person's brain, which is what I associate with the Logic 101 bros, right? Which is something I also tie to the idea that objectivity exists. And to me, it's always a contrivance, a useful one to solve a lot of problems we have, that we can create this contrivance of objectivity and find out what we can agree on to solve X. So, but on something that's more amorphous, like envy, I just don't know if that, I feel like it would be such a contrivance to pretend you had a, linear argument.
If I was to write a YouTube video essay about World War II, that's a very broad topic. There's a lot one can say about World War II. I would argue...
It is a topic that happened materially from this time to this time with these preceding conditions and these...
I am not
whatever,
going to
that's not the same as envy.
I would not if you gave me 4 hours. If you gave me a Ken Burns level of time... to talk about
hours.
World War II, there would be an infinite number of ideas and angles and thoughts. Even in this finite set, as you said, it's a thing that happened from this date to this date. It's very containable, but there is an absolutely infinite number of ways one can talk about it, what things from one can talk about. Any description, no matter how long, of World War II would be incomplete. And I feel like even if I was writing a descriptive history of World War II, there would be a thesis in there. Whether it would be
Nazis
which
are
again,
bad.
I understand is a satisfying way to convey ideas and information for both the conveyor and the receiver. I'm just saying
I wouldn't say World War II means this, and these are the facts that I'll use to support why I say that. It would just, in giving the information, I would be
and generally the thesis is embedded in. You don't need to say it. The thesis to most of those
judge it based on whether
and most of the thesis, if you go onto YouTube and you see a video essay about World War II, the general thesis that you'll get in an American made thing is America was the good guy who came in and saved everybody from losing the war to the Nazis. That's generally...
Or America wasn't the good guy. Look how different we are.
Yeah.
Or...
I'm going to make a probably really dumb analogy here. The way that you're talking about, yes, you would make this argument or that argument in this context is something I am going to make an analogy to playing poker, right? Poker is gambling, obviously, but also there's techniques and strategies you can use to be more successful at playing poker. However, even if you learn all the techniques and strategies that set your expectations for the game, you could play somebody who is void of that information and it will not matter, all of that framework. So what I'm saying here is I completely understand the purpose of theses in general. I just think it's fair to say you can approach something that is existentially existing over all of humanity for all of history, like envy, in a way that you can't apply to...
you would be having some thoughts that you're sharing about that, and there's a reason you're choosing to share those thoughts and not other thoughts.
So no thoughts are worthwhile if they don't form a cogent thesis.
But, I mean,
the thesis exists for the thoughts to exist. I mean, there's a... Yeah, I would say that... I would defend that. Like, there's a reason you're saying one thing about envy and not another thing about it. And in that choice... there is a rationale for that choice.
And I can say that in media in particular, and this kind of goes to a deconstructive thing, where the margins of what you're not saying are more important than what you're actually saying. Because
I just watched Roderick. I was thinking margins too.
The margins of philosophy, what he, in Derrida's clip about what he wants other philosophers to talk about, is what they never talked about in their written work. Why they perform their philosophy so asexually is why he wants them to talk about their sexuality. The thing I want ContraPoints to talk about in her YouTube essay is why she didn't talk about the most baseline argument that capitalism has about why the Soviet Union fell. Because that is so endemic to the ongoing narrative about it, which is a major event in our lifetime, as to the belief that the Soviet Union fell due to the people of the Soviet Union being envious of
the other side of the wall.
The other side of the wall, but also of the Taco Bell and also of the McDonald's that they didn't have access to.
And moreover, the reason capitalism succeeds is because of the envy that one neighbor has for his other neighbor, and therefore that motivates him to compete against his neighbor.
Right, and that analysis enters in at parts. Like, it enters into the SpongeBob and Squidward analysis when she's talking about Nietzsche, because there is a competition between neighbors that she very binarily discusses, as there's an archetype of the SpongeBob who is a blissful, asexual, autistic character who's always happy in whatever banal task that he's doing. And then there's a curmudgeonly old judgmental character who will look at the person who is blissfully having a good time and be like, well, I'm in the same situation as they are, but they seem happier than me. Why am I not as happy as them? I'm miserable. And she sets up these two archetypes that are much like a lot of Jordan Peterson's.
It's very very hinging on self-help,
Jungian kind of analysis
tools.
That's being applied through Nietzschean lens, which is all Jordan Peterson does, which is which ends in the fucking resolution that SpongeBob is the Ubermensch because he's just happy with being banal and having the knowledge of his own happiness. And I find that, her dismissive attitude of the alienation that capitalism oppresses on people, that leads them to this neighborly dispute between two people, and by extension, this huge historical event where we've explained away an entire nation state, an empire collapsing due to envy, seems like something that has been on the margins of her analysis, which was never addressed. And she then uses the rest of her time to talk about how revolutions failed.
I'd argue that she actually does not buy it. I think there's a part of the envy video that indicates that she thinks this natural envy that happens between human beings is a pre-existing thing that would exist with or without the conditions of capitalism. I think that's part of where she's at right now.
Which is a capitalist argument.
Yeah. I agree with you that all of these things fit into an argument where we are talking about the alienation and etc. I also think it's fair to say that, there's probably some envy outside possibly of the conditions of capitalism, but who the fuck knows, because we can't do it.
Capitalist realism is real.
It doesn't, I can also imagine I live in Cowboy Bebop. We can do a lot of things.
Oh my God, that's a reference I haven't heard.
Sorry, I was thinking a lot about Cowboy Bebop this week.
Okay, listeners, I just want to point out, Steve did call the Soviet Union an empire, and please direct all your angry emails to Stephen for that.
Yeah, it's Virgil, Texas, Trap House.
The Great Western Empire of Russia.
Initially, I called it a nation state.
A nation state.
Yeah, but then you went to empire.
Empire.
But anyway, I think
Which
one
is
of
in the
things
frame,
to point
which is
out-
in the narrative of American belief about the fall of them, is that this great empire fell.
is the fact that you, Bunny, are musing on what ContraPoints thinks or doesn't think about the different theses she's saying.
Theses, Jesus Christ, every fucking time.
No, I will again say there is a bit of a impulse within me to
Defend her because you're horny for her?
yes, that's true. I
Yeah.
did establish that already. But no, what I mean is there's an impulse within me to go, but what if we didn't need a thesis?
What if we don't need Hegel?
Just because of how my particular mind palace galaxy brain works, especially when it comes to philosophical concepts and whatever,
Right.
like the way some people that people tell me are very difficult to understand. I feel like I grok them. And then there are other concepts that are very seemingly rudimentary to others that I'm like slipping through my grasp. My enjoyment of philosophical discourse and etc. is, I'll admit, primarily like, let's get stoned and talk about what it is, man. Even before I got stoned, I was a little bit like this. People wanted to like be cool and make out and do drugs, and I was like, okay, guys,
No.
what about stuff preceding my time with drugs? My time in college, obviously I was studying theater. Oh, well, I was a classics minor, so I did my classic philosophies, whatever. But when I read Derrida, when I read whatever, it was just like randomly I saw it referenced somewhere else. And then I went and looked it up and just had this very... It wasn't until very recently in my life that I even was aware of the discourse around these works to the point that they really, really exist. So...
And we're tilling that
yeah,
field.
we're definitely doing
We're
that.
tilling that field for you. I think there was a tension about this broad idea of a thesis. That you raise the question of whether or not truth can be brought to with a thesis, antithesis, and then like a synthesis of those, which is the Hegelian model for how we approach truth, and phenomenology and a lot of existential philosophy, which ended up being self-help, really rejected Hegelian models of truth-telling, and that is a very modern way of looking at it, because Hegel, who I have not read, and
no one has read
no
Hegel.
one
That's
has.
famously the thing about
That's
Hegel.
the phenomenology of
has read
spirit.
Hegel.
I just know we're supposed to be like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
What
that
the fuck's
dude.
Hegel talking about?
He's this fucking dude who.
One of my favorite Tumblr communists back in the day, screen name was Spitting on Hegel.
Well, the one person that telling us to read Hegel is Zizek.
Yeah, but like no one listens to him.
You do.
You love him.
You
Yeah, he's
reference
great.
him all the time.
You love him.
He's wonderful, but like no one like actually like who cares? Fuck you, you old fucking drug addict. You got some kind of autism or something? I don't give a shit.
What?
I'm not gonna listen to Zizek tell me to read shit.
Well, and then I'm always
actually
like,
I will, because like
you do all the time.
Yeah.
well, yeah, no, well,
Or
This
is
is
that
on the-
limited to his
This is in
book
the
of jokes?
This is in the margins of your
no,
conversation.
my general what I get from Heidegger is
Heidegger?
whatever.
How do you
Zizek.
say it? Oh, no,
No,
okay.
he's saying
He's
Zizek.
supposed to be saying Zizek. I was just like, wait, have I been saying Heidegger wrong this whole
Yeah,
time?
Heidegger.
No, the one thing you get from Zizek is you don't need to watch the movies in order to talk about them. You don't need to watch the news in order to talk about it, and you don't need to watch ContraPoints in order to talk about it. And
Well,
that's what you gotta
it
know.
seems like you read Sublime Object of Ideology, and that was a very important book for you in your development as a communist
Meh.
or a philosopher.
Dude calls themselves a philosopher.
All right.
A positivist? Are you calling me a positivist, Stephen?
Well, I'm willing to say
Are you suggesting the word philosopher references something in the real world and it's sitting across from you? That sounds pretty positive to me.
Yes, it's me. I'm the philosopher.
That's Bunny. Bunny is the philosopher.
Sitting across from Marlo.
Marlo, you love
Marlo,
Zizek.
you love Zizek.
I love Zizek.
Zizek, come on our podcast.
Yeah, no, seriously, you went on Red Scare.
Zizek, if you are in Brooklyn and want to hang out, just come on our podcast.
He should just call in. What the fuck?
We'll let you walk around with a pizza or hot dog or whatever it was from that video we all love. So we've all heard the horse paste ivermectin. Okay,
I have.
God
Marlo,
damn it!
what?
What did your mom tell you or something?
No, I saw some memes.
Okay. Oh yeah. Fair enough. So, infamously, people are taking ivermectin, which is a horse veterinary dewormer, anti-parasite paste for COVID because some right-wingers said it's good, and of course, predictably, people are getting sick off of it. It's not preventing them from dying from COVID. Then conversely, people are like, they're blocking the research about it. It's gone off out of the roof. How much horse paste people are buying. But I have seen some memes making fun of the horse paste people that I want to
address.
I want to address. There's nothing wrong with giving America's healthcare system some educated investment in veterinary medicine. Okay? I just want to put it out there. Fish tetracycline, almost identical. Look, if you were super desperate, take the fish tetracycline antibiotic. It's still an antibiotic. Ivermectin, though, I will admit I have some. Not to take internally because it is... as a topical, it's good for certain skin conditions like rosacea, which you can buy at a premium prescription, 1% from the pharmacy.
I don't know what the fuck Bonnie's point of this whole rant was, but I think it was to say
I got
that
some.
you
want
should
some?
in fact take ivermectin.
No, you shouldn't take it internally, but I just want to say that,
you should spread it all over your body, and it'll prevent.
That helps you.
I'm not kidding. This is like a fucking well-established thing that
Bonnie
because
believes.
it's like $300 to get the identical chemical in a different tube
from Kim Kardashian
from the pharmacy. Yeah. So this is.
So,
but my dad is somebody who did have, like I said, the fish tetracycline as a backup. In in case shit goes down kind of thing. But I'm not kidding. Literally, I have given it to people.
I have no idea what this insane bullshit is, and I disown all of it.
Okay, so...
If you have an infection and you have access only to fucking fish antibiotics, take the fucking fish antibiotics is what the fuck I'm actually saying right now.
I'm regretting
it's
bringing this
the
up.
same thing.
Okay,
And I'm saying
you told me to.
You should go to a little palace with a clamshell that opens and closes periodically.
No, okay, so I've heard of tetracycline
The
before.
same way I go to Canada and I buy shit that's over the counter there that you have to pay a premium to get prescribed here. It's the same fucking thing when we're talking about how it's being applied. Using
just have to buy
ivermectin
it from
internally
Bikini Bottom.
for a virus like COVID doesn't actually make sense. But using for an actual parasite or a similar skin condition does make sense. Just like if you desperate times can't get antibiotics from a doctor and you had...
Have you had a parasite that you've gone out with?
Rosacea rosacea, which is a skin condition I have, is... I will say the ivermectin is effective. I've had a flare-up. I've taken a little bit of put it on where I've had a flare-up, and it has reduce that
Have you
flare
put
up.
this on your TikTok?
Maybe she's bored
No,
with it.
this is like
Maybe
this
it's
is
horse
because
this is like a
skin-
very well established like
Skincare is
Side
big.
thing.
Skincare is big on TikTok.
To be fair, that is also what the crazy people would say about ivermectin.
no, they're using
they're
it for a
saying
different application.
They're
not
eating
using
it.
They're taking it
Sure, but they
internally.
would say that it's very well established.
No, they're taking it. No, ivermectin is prescribed to human beings, but you have to pay like $300 in order to get that. If I don't want to look like a fucking drunk Irish person from a ad from the early 20th century because my rosacea is flared up.
The racism against Irish people for me to admit this. I've agreed with you the entire time.
Yeah.
I've just been an asshole.
Yeah, there's nowhere else for me to
this
like
is like
say this
arguing-
dumb shit. I honestly
This
am
is
defending my
arguing-
father with the
This
fish.
is arguing with
Nobody
my
else.
mother about like where she's like, oh, generic drugs aren't as good, and it's like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I am. I don't know. There's also like a little bit of an impulse in me to be like, yeah, we're getting over on these people trying to fucking not give us access to healthcare and affordable medicines.
Anyway.
It's just that.
Anyway, take horse cream for your.
Just put it on your skin now. Don't put it inside.
If you have COVID, remember that horse cream is only a topical.
Topical only.
Topical only.
100% effective against COVID, though.
If you only got it on your face.
Yeah, yeah, that's where you get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so remember that.
But also, if
And
you have rosacea in your
If you have
pore.
it in your lungs,
I'm imagining
just
us-
snort it.
I'm
Just
imagining
snort
us
the
getting
horse
this
cream.
removed for misinformation.
Oh yeah, this is my goal.
Okay, yeah, if it's gonna get
horse
removed-
cream for long COVID.
If it's going to get removed, I definitely want to double down on, look, if you have rosacea, just try it. Like, I got to be honest. There's a million dumb rosacea suggestions on the internet. The horse paste, it does work. I have done it before. I needed to take photos, which is, I always try out something like this if there's like a performance related
sounds
deadline.
like a 90s sitcom plot where it's like the girl has like a zit and so she takes some weird like veterinary medicine before her class pictures.
Well, it's like if you have access to a dermatologist, which is a certain premium thing, it's not a regular doctor, and you had a big pimple and you had an event, you could go and get a shot of cortisone and it would reduce that pimple within hours, right? If you can't do that and you got a little more time than a few hours, pack a bunch of hydrocortisone on there under a blister Band-Aid overnight, and it'll at least make it a little bit flatter. I'm just saying, if you're going to hack things, at least make it make sense. It doesn't make sense to take a dewormer anti-parasite for a virus. Not the same
Anyway,
enemy.
eat that horse cream, people. It'll
Eat the horse cream.
It'll
Eat
cure
the horse cream.
COVID.
Are we doing Rock the Casbah?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
just
yeah.
making sure.
Oh, okay. I didn't get that. I thought that was some shit off Donda.
Sharif, don't like eat the horse cream.
That doesn't
Eat
sound anything
the
like
horse
that.
cream.
Anyway,
They were the Sultans. The
Look,
Sultans of horse
go
cream.
to your local feed store. You know.
Show a picture of your horse when you buy it.
Anyway, I guess we're done.
Yeah.
Good night. And
Good
luck.
night.
ice cream. Eat the ice cream. The ice cream. Eat the ice cream. Ice cream. Eat the ice cream. The ice cream. Eat the ice cream. Ice cream. Eat